Da da da! What's my good chair? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes, get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never popped into one of my lives, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And coming in live tonight, it is in that exhaustion that there is no preparation in any kind of lesson or any kind of message that I'm trying to, or most of the time, I'm not even trying to get a message out there. But in the last few seconds, I would just like a hint of something of the topic we're talk about. And for the most part, it doesn't happen, but as soon as I hit that live button, lots of times you'll see me, right? I give that little giggle because I don't know what the topic is. And I give that little bit of is it embarrassment? I'm not sure if it's embarrassment. It's more like nervousness, is what it is. And it's like, right, here we go. And you don't know what you're going to talk about it. But it always works out for me. And I am grateful for that. And maybe it doesn't work out for everybody. Maybe it's in my own perception and my own idea about things that I'm the only one entertained by what I chitter chatter about. But I do come into my lives myself, at the end of every live show, sometimes I'll go make another cup of coffee if my coffee is gone cold. Because again, if you've hung out with me for any length of time, you know that I can chit chat, right? Let me have a sip. And I do make a good cup of coffee. But to date, right, I was out all day today with my sister and we exhaust each other. We're sisters. I love my sisters more than I love anything in this world. But we butt heads. We grind each other down. We sometimes put each other down, but we support each other. We know if there's a problem that one of us will have a solution, right? I'm not the only dynamic being in my family. Oh my goodness, if you could only meet some of my sisters. And I think you've met Alice, but you've not met Tracy, and you haven't met Carolyn. And Tracy, especially, is a big part of why I come here and share my experience, because none of this would have been possible. Again, something that you'll hear me say all the time, because so many choices in my life, I could have made a different choice. Just one choice, and my life could have, would have, even if it shouldn't have, would be off going that way. These are some of the ADHD kind of factors that a lot of highly sensitives, empaths, codependents. There's so many labels, and that's what makes it so confusing, right? Because lots of us, for myself, I didn't even know what an empath was until I was like well into my 50s. In all honesty, I thought I knew what empathy was, that you sympathize with somebody. This is what I thought. I didn't understand that my sense of knowing how somebody feels is a little bit different than this terminology that I was accustomed. And it wasn't even accustomed. It might have come across my path once or twice in my entire lifetime, and then all of a sudden have my whole world blow up in my face by getting an understanding of one word, empath. And it set me on a little bit of a journey to discover what an empath was, how emotions impact me, to recognize, to have an opportunity to recognize, that those emotions that I carried about myself, whether they were negative and positive, and there was a mixture of both, and maybe it swung a little bit further in one direction than the other. Right? I am grateful that it was not all squashed to nothingness because, I do feel my way out around out there, and I'm paying attention, and I see that a lot of people are struggling, right? And I struggle, but my struggles don't seem so life devastating. When I look at the world and I see they can't even get a meal on a plate, right? Or a roof over my head. I'm so grateful for that roof over my head. And actually, today I got some great news in this roof over my head. I quit that job, right? That was paying the rent. And government felt I didn't have a good enough reason to collect, right? The insurance on that. Okay, that's fine. I accepted. I knew nobody was going to take the side and believe what I was talking about when I was saying, right? And I didn't want to end my relationship with that company in a negative tone because, again, I would not be sitting here. See, I would not be sitting here if it wasn't for the choice to even give this job a try or to immerse myself in it and to come to realize how much I love this job and I loved what it offered in my life to be able to expand at a pace that I was comfortable, that I didn't have to go head first 100,000 miles an hour and turn my whole life into crazy town, though it would have swung that way a little bit. It was scary, but that is part of that experience. It's to recognize how fragile we actually are. And when I say that, I don't say that in a bad way. I say that in those most beautiful, evolutionary, in optimism that we can continue to hold that fragility, that softness in this that we have. And, I look out there, and again, like I said, I pay attention, and that hardness is really hard to digest because, again, having that empathy, right? And truly understanding now what that empathy means, that I can really put myself in somebody's shoes and see really, truly how people are struggling to have any emotions other than negative. Even a negative emotion is something, right? So don't downplay the mean ones, the loud mouths, the narcissists, right? They are struggling too, but you can tell because they cannot control those emotions, even if they're negative, that you have to recognize that is the evidence of those sensitivities, right? That's the evidence that it is not gone too far. But when it shut down and it goes cold and unreadable, wow, right? And this is the way this world is moving to. And, I really think the empaths and the highly sensitives are the ones who are going to save the world because we are going to be living in a world of technology. We are going to be living in a world of robots and mechanisms that really do not understand the concept of emotions, right? We push the emotions away because they're painful, aren't they? Heartbreak is sad. Grief is sad. Anger is that's sad too. Anger is sad. For me, it was the saddest thing ever to have that anger projected onto me. It was just the most shameful, just so gut wrenchingly something that I had to accept in my life. It's right. It is sad, but I use that empathy to put myself in my own shoes, right? In the shoes of that 12-year-old, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, right? And I can truly empathize with that. But in empathizing with that, I have to be able to empathize with worse. When I say worse, we're talking about the ones that are not getting a meal, the ones who don't have a roof over their head, those ones that don't have one person in their life to show them what softness means. I got that, right? You know, I was devoured by the love as much as I was devoured by the hate. And that is a truth. And again, I would not be sitting here, I don't think, I know, right? If it wasn't for that understanding, right? So I am grateful. I am grateful for my understandings, no matter when they came or how they came, right? They came. That's what's most important in going forward, that I could do a little bit better by myself, do a little bit better by my family, and do a little bit better by those parts that possibly, right, didn't get to show up the way they would have, should have, or could have showed up, right? Not to even mention how they wanted to show up, right? Okay, like I said, you come into the live, you hit that live button, Cindy. You don't even have to talk topic. It's just like woo, and here we go. And I'll come into my live, and you know what? There'll be one thing in that I will be able to pick from, and be able to apply in my life right now. Did I mention what the good news was? I did mention what the good news was. I was out with my sister. We're getting ready for a big yard sale. I'm getting rid of 5 years worth of stuff, right? This might not change so much, but my cupboards and underneath, and it's going to be amazing. I'm going to have space to move my furniture around. It's going to be amazing. But when I came home today, there was a letter from the head office of the agency that I rent my apartment from. A rent decrease. Have you ever heard of that, you guys? A rent decrease for myself. I thought, oh my goodness. When I asked and inquired, because I heard somebody else had done that, I asked and I inquired, not thinking of very much, but I thought, oh, if we could bring it down just a couple $100. Like, I was one of the few people in here that actually was working. My rent, I was paying pretty high rent, right? And I thought if they could just even knock it for a couple $100, that I would be able to manage. Like, I would be able to manage. And wouldn't it be able to give what I'm doing right now a true shot? Because there are things that I would do if I knew that I had that time without that worry up the roof over my head, that I am so grateful for, right? But they knocked my rent by half. I My heart burst. It put me in no matter how exhausted I was, it put me in an instant good mood. And I wanted to do something kind for my caretaker, because she really went out of her way to, right? And we have a good relationship. I pay my rent on time and everything. I'm no bother to her, right? And I don't get involved in those chitter chatters and stuff with the other people in the building, right? So it was a kindness. And I thought, oh, I want to do something for her. Me and my sister are getting ready for a big yard sale. And I said, oh my goodness, I know exactly what I'll do. Well, I didn't really. Didn't really play that. I kind of looked around my apartment off and on for about an hour, tied it down to a couple of things, but I didn't think they were just sensitive enough because again, you have to put yourself in somebody else's shoes for lots of reasons. And for me, I put myself in her shoes to kind of feel the kind of person that she was because she sits in an office, right? You don't know what she's like in her own personal life. And I wanted it to be a personal gift. I thought maybe I'll give her, one of my nice crystals or something, right? I've got nice cards. I'll pick her nice cards. I'll write something nice to her, right? Just so it'll make her smile as she's going in towards the end of her week. And, and then I walked into my walk-in closet because I'm getting some stuff ready. And we were getting stuff over there, but I got a ton. I told her, I says, we need Tom's truck, my brother-in-law's truck, and we'll load up the truck with all my stuff, right? We'll do it in one shot. She said, okay with that. But when I was in the closet, I have a purse. And there isn't very many women out there that are not a fan of the Steve Madden purses. And I had one gifted to me. And I took the gift because it came from the heart and I so much appreciated it. And it was a beautiful, just my color because he knows I like mustard, just my color. And it was a beautiful little bag, real leathered, soft, and oh, it was perfect. But I do the shoulder bags because I'm always carrying stuff and hauling and right. And of course, in this day and age, I wanted them on my neck. Right. I don't want to be carrying my purse around and then somebody just runs by me and goes, oh, thank you. Right? You don't want to tempt somebody to do something bad. That would be partly on me if I knew that walking in my neighborhood with a loose purse that would tempt somebody. I got to take part of that accountability for that too, right? So I always wear my purses wrapped around my neck. So I found a Steve Madden purse and I found two beautiful because again I was working in a thrift store, so every new scented candle came into the store. I bought them because they were cheap. They were a dollar. It didn't matter if they were $40 candles. They had $1 on them or 75 cents on them or something. It was great. And I just kept buying these candles, right? I thought I was going to open up my own store. Buying all these I got a huge box full of beautiful candles. So I gave her a couple of candles, couple of bracelets that match the same color as the purse, right? Start her off with some decent jewelry. I'll give her a nice card and the Steve Madden bag. And I'll say thank you very much. And knowing the kind of person I did, put myself in her shoes because there were a couple of things that I knew about her would which would give her a certain persona if she is right with her customers even and in her flexibility and how formal or informal she is and just gave me a little bit of hint in her personal so I was able to put myself in somebody's shoes and to kind of read what kind of gift right there were other things I was looking. I have a hand blown ice bucket with some iced tea glasses. I was considering that, and I thought, oh, I'll give that to her. That was really nice, all hand blown and stuff. And I'm not gonna use it. I'm gonna put it in the yard sale, like it, right? So maybe she'll like it. But that Steve Madden purse, and knowing that little bit that I knew about her, I knew she's gonna munch on that one for sure. And I'm only doing it just to say thank you because you guys, I think I might be able to take the summer off. I am deserving of taking the summer off. I'm going to be working throughout it, but I'm going to be working on the things that I want to be working on. And one of those things that I'm going to be working on is myself and bringing that joy for life back into fruition, right? That was a different kind of happiness, but this is a more of a bit of happiness. And I'm going into the end of my life, and I think I'm going to touch on something here. Going back when I came back into my life, and I was saying I didn't know what I was going to talk about, right? I had no idea. Let me have a sip of my coffee. I see you there, dear. Let me get this notification out and let me say hello. Hello, Eugene. Hello. Yeah, hello, Eugene. Thank you so much for popping into my life. Yeah, so again, when I was coming into my life, I says, I don't know what I'm going to talk about tonight. I just haven't even thought about it. I was just so exhausted. Right? I just kind of sat at my desk and I was just about to watch to see what the updates are in that mountain in Blatten in Switzerland, and it seems like a new lake is being formed now, and yeah, get a little bit more information because there's other villages along that river, and they're saying there's a little bit more of a crisis going on, and I'm not a crisis person at all. I don't know even why I have been so interested in this mountain, but I don't think the story is over yet, unfortunately. And so I still find myself interested in staying up with the updates. So going back to the beginning of my live, saying I didn't know what I was going to talk about just before I came live, right? I was just doing the setting it up, the date and everything, and setting up a podcast for later. And I was looking through my notebook here. This is a month's worth of notebooks. My book is full. There are all kinds of topics in here. And I just quickly browsed through it to see, oh, maybe there's something in here that we can talk about tonight. And then I hit on this page, right? And the topic was trust and staying soft. So it's kind of where I flowed into, right? Because as fast as I came to that page, it came out of my mind. But as soon as I hit that live button, it came right back to the surface and we delved into it. And I didn't even read. I just read this trust and staying soft when we feel we are the only ones holding it all together, right? And quite often we become uh, embittered for that, right? Not not uh, resentful, but just bitter because sometimes we see how much we put into how much we contribute and how much we follow the rules, right? And when I say the rules, I'm just kind of thinking those baselines as to where we all have to kind of fall into line, right? It is in that majority that we do have to move because that is the next stage of evolution, right? So I am so grateful that I was pulled into the digital age, that I was pulled into AI learning because again, you guys, I wouldn't be here, right? This technology era was not my thing. I never even played video games. And like my mother, that television remote control was really something, right? Now everything is clap or hey Google or right. I should say that because my phone will go off. No idea where it is. I come home and I forget that I even have a phone sometimes, right? Oh, it's plugged in right here. Yeah, yeah, all kinds of right. But I'm not big on my phone that way. In the digital age, I use this in communication in this need because it is a need. It's not necessarily a want, but I need to be seen. I need to be heard. I need to be relevant, right? And these are all lessons that I've just recently come to understand. And each one of us gets to have those choices, and it is only in my attempt to stay soft, right? To stay relevant when I could so easily fall behind with those that are not even looking at a computer or learning how to use all the apps available for their phone, right? That this is just too much for them. I remember my mother getting a universal remote for the television, right? Our dial TV. The remote control came out. My dad got her a universal remote. And again, you can buy those at Dollarama now, right? But in the day, that would have been very expensive. And my mother would open it up. My dad think he'd be so proud, right, of himself that my mom doesn't have to get off the couch anymore, that she doesn't have to walk on her aching arthritic legs to get up to go change the channel on the TV or to go and put a movie in the beta machine. And right, because in those days it was beta, not even VHS, it was beta, right? But my dad was big on that technology, but that of the past, right? And nothing like those 1960s 1970s speakers that were taller than a man in most cases, right? But not to lose track of what I'm talking, my mother did not want to use the remote control. She took that remote control and she chucked it against the wall as soon as she opened it up, and she cranked and yelled for a few minutes before she kind of recognized that she might have embarrassed herself a little bit, because she didn't put herself in anybody's shoes. She didn't think, oh, my dad had put so much thought and care and love into picking out the gift. It just wasn't the gift that she wanted or she expected. Bit ticked because my dad was not paying attention to what my mother's needs were or her wants were, and that he should have known that's not what she would have wanted, right? If it was, I don't remember if it was a birthday or Christmas or what it was, right? But I remember her getting that remote. She liked to throw things. My mother. Okay, you guys. So I turned it to this page and I says, oh, well, maybe we'll talk about trust and staying soft, because I know how important it is. And I know how we're all moving and we're all becoming cold and hard. And then it's not going to be like an overnight process, that, but over generations, I think we will eventually, uh, if we don't pay attention, lose that ability to be sensitive. Being sensitive for me has been truly a lifesaver, and I'm not even putting that lightly. I'm putting that like no question, no question. It it was it was everything, right? And you know, again, I'm going to have to say, right? I didn't want to get into that heavy thing, but in that trust, when that trust is broken, every time it just becomes harder and harder and harder and harder. But because we are sensitives, because we are empaths, right? We get sucked into it again because we want to belong. We want people to care about us. We want to have friends and people who love us, right? We don't want to be alone, but we become accustomed to it and we accept it and we adapt and conquer and find ways to adjust and make an enjoyable life, right? But is that enjoyable life a happy life, right? Because we can all be entertained, and the things that I love have nothing to do with being entertained. Even that light content, like my metal detecting videos, right? My outdoor adventures, they're all offering me that connection to Mother Nature, those things that I need, right? So maybe tomorrow, maybe for the rest of the week, we'll talk about trust and softness, because yeah, it's pretty important. And like I said, I think, that I've been able to manage um, this experience that I'm playing out, specifically because I was able to need, whether that trust was worthy of my trust, it didn't matter, because in the end, I was right. I was doing what was right, only being responsible for myself and my own actions, right? And my own thoughts. And so in the end, I did what I was supposed to do anyway, right? And it's not like what you don't know doesn't hurt you. But sometimes it's just a matter of getting through a difficult moment to a more calmer state where you can actually digest the conversation, the experience, right? The outcome, and be able to read into it a little bit better, to be a little bit more sensitive. Because lots of times we can just jump down, right? And I'm not big on that. For the most part, I am very non confrontational. But on the other side of that, I am very self protective. So there is a little bit of balance in that. But again, just like I said, I am only responsible for my own actions. What those other parts of me, right? It has its own existence, and I've seen that existence in play. And you know who am I to judge that, whether it's good, amazing, right, or something I just don't understand. But that's the thing, it's something that I don't understand, so why should I get to have a say in it unless it affects me in some way. Like there is blowback on me. But then again, even then, I would have to be accepting and forgiving and optimistic that it could be resolved, because you know Cindy makes mistakes too, right? So it has to be again balanced in that understanding. I think in anything, if you can understand, it's like a saying that my dad used to say when we were kids, there's no point in being sorry unless you know what you're sorry for. So when you go to say, sorry, dad, or sorry, Alice, or sorry, Tracy, right? That person could say, or somebody witnessing or with you in the time could say, well, what are you sorry for? And just listen, right? Listen to the stall, listen with your own, putting yourself in somebody else's shoes, or paying attention to, right? People staring off into space, and actually, you guys have seen me do that. You kind of like, you're thinking, and then you come back for a second, right? Because if you ask, that answer should just be on the tip. It should be something that you have to search and delve for, right? Okay, you guys, I guess we'll talk about trust and staying soft this week. Yeah, it's important because it kind of ties in also into a little bit of an understanding that I got earlier this week. And, it was a big one for me. It was something I never considered before. And, did it make me sad? I don't know, right? I wish it was a different color shoe, but the shoe is the shoe, right? It doesn't matter if it fits, it is. And sometimes I have to understand it is in that acceptance with that. And I would much rather know than never know at all. And like I said, this was a new one for me. I didn't even have any idea that this thing existed. Maybe something like it, but this one thing I didn't know. But again, it's all in the labels, isn't it? Okay, you guys. Trust and staying soft this week. Eugene, thank you so much. Oh, thanks, Eugene. Thank you. Again, you guys, this week we'll stick on that topic. And yeah, I'll be here right till Friday. I usually show up at the same time. I try and keep it as light as I can, but it is kind of like shadow work, and you are probably going to bed if you're anywheres on this side of the hemisphere, right? Like this, this can be something, but you know, I think, and I should say that we should understand too that sometimes it's just in the understanding, right, of what's going on or getting an answer, right? Even though it wasn't the answer I wanted to hear, it was an answer, and it gets me a little bit closer, and in that I'm grateful for that. And and again, that's expanding, that's movement forward. And for some people that just might be a little thing. Oh, most likely that was probably a little thing, but for me, in the moment, it is everything, right? And I'm going to delve into it like I've been delving into it off and on today, because again, I was all day with my sister, and we were kind of, yeah, feeding on each other a little bit, right? Getting ready for yard sale. Okay, you guys, have a great night, and we'll see you.